I didn't believe in that shit. Not in witches, not in ghosts, not in tales of living Pripyat. I went there to shoot a blog, to get views, and most importantly, to prove that all this is just noise, invented by those who have never been closer to the zone than sitting on the couch in front of the TV. There were 6 of us, a tourist group officially registered. The guide, Yuri, was an old man of about 60, with a hoarse voice and eyes in which radiation dust had frozen. The rest were 3 Ukrainians, silent, with backpacks with Stalker clan insignias on them, and a girl from Moscow. I didn't remember her name right away. She kept to herself, with a camera in her hand and an expression on her face as if she knew what we were getting ourselves into. We started early in the morning from Kovel, then we crossed through Chernobyl, and here we were, the post through which we were let into the zone. Control, documents, inspection. Everything according to the instructions. Yuri, shrugging his shoulders, muttered, "Rules are rules. If something happens, it's better that they know who's missing." My head started ringing. Why would I disappear if the route was agreed upon? The radiation was under control. The dosimeters only beeped when approaching contaminated spots. Everything was as advertised. Safe, cheap, and with a hint of real danger. The first 2 days passed smoothly. We spent the night in houses set up for the routes, half collapsed, but still standing. The water was bottled. The food was freeze-dried. No one complained. Only a Muscovite sometimes recorded herself on camera, in a whisper at night. I heard her voice through the thin wall. Everything is not as it seems. Too quiet. On the 3rd day it began. We were walking along the old road towards Pripyat. It was cloudy. A gloomy sky, a gray light, as if everything had died out in both color and sound. Yuri walked ahead, not looking back. Suddenly he stopped and gestured for us to freeze. "See?" he whispered. I squinted. Someone had drawn a circle with chalk on the wet asphalt, and in the circle was an inverted cross, as if scratched with something sharp. "That wasn't there yesterday," he added. "I took a group here 3 days ago." One of the Ukrainians snorted. "Someone's kidding." But Yuri didn't move. "It's a sign. Someone is coming for us, not a person." I would have laughed if it weren't for the stench. At that moment, from somewhere below, from the asphalt, from the ground, something smelled. Rot, like from the sewer, but worse, like carrion. We turned off the road and went along a dirt road leading to an old pioneer camp. According to Yuri, it was a safe place to spend the night. But already on the approach to the gates it became clear that there was nothing safe there. On a rusty sign above the entrance, someone had written in fresh paint, "Do not enter." The girl filmed it. I wanted to get closer to take a picture, but one of the Ukrainians suddenly grabbed me by the shoulder. "Don't touch. It's like a trap." "A trap?" I grinned. "They don't joke in the zone." It was damp inside the pioneer camp houses, smelled of mold and mice. We chose the most intact building. Someone lit a candle, flashlights, saving battery. At dinner, they hardly spoke. Only the sounds of rain and barely perceptible rustling outside were heard. I attributed it to rats. But at night we were awakened by a scream, a woman's, shrill, desperate. We ran outside with flashlights. The girl was standing in the center of the yard, shaking as if she had been pulled out of icy water. "There was someone there," she screamed. "In that house. He was looking at me. He didn't blink." We walked around the entire camp. No one. Only the wind and a dead sparrow at the entrance, with its wings turned inside out. Yuri then said for the first time something that made me seriously wary. "This place, it doesn't like being watched." He wasn't looking at us. He was looking into the darkness, as if he saw an old memory in it. We stayed the night in that camp. Not because we wanted to, but because it was dangerous to go further. It was getting dark quickly, and the road was washed away by the rain, and walking through the forest with flashlights was too risky. I slept in fits and starts. Every rustle seemed alien. In one of my dreams, I saw myself walking along Pripyat. It was empty, washed by the rain. All the houses were transparent. You could see through the windows that there were no people, but the furniture was standing. The tables were set as if they had just had dinner. And suddenly, in every window, there was a silhouette, black, with blurred edges like smoke, and they were all looking at me. I woke up from my own sob. My heart was pounding. Someone from our group coughed. The girl, it seemed, was not sleeping. She was sitting by the wall, camera in her hands, her gaze empty. The next morning, Yuri said that we couldn't change the route. We were going further. A little closer to the river. There's a tower there. There was an observation post on it. If everything is quiet, we'll spend the night there. By lunchtime, we had reached an old bridge. Trains had once traveled across it. The rails had rusted, but the structure held. Muddy, slow water flowed under the bridge. It smelled of a swamp. Then there's a shortcut through the forest, Yuri said. But there's one peculiarity. The map is silent. This forest hasn't been mapped, although it's been here for about 30 years. He went first. Suddenly, everything around seemed to become muffled. Even our footsteps didn't sound like before. I checked the camera's microphone. It only picked up my voice, but not a single external sound. No birds, no wind, only the crunch of leaves underfoot, as if someone had put a filter on the world. It was too quiet in the forest. Silence, like before a storm. Only not a weather one, but a mental one. For the first time I felt, if I scream, no one will hear. One of the Ukrainians, the one who was walking at the end, suddenly disappeared. He just stopped walking. We turned around. No one. He had a dosimeter with a yellow belt, noticeable. We rushed back, walked about 100 meters, no trace, no sound, not even a smell, as if he had been cut out of this reality with scissors. Yuri just looked at us and said, "That's it. We can't go back. Someone stays so the rest can get out." I boiled over. "What are you talking about, Grandpa? Did you know where you were taking us?" He didn't answer. The observation tower greeted us with a deafening creak. The metal bent, but the ladder held. Below, the same forest, silent and tense. The girl took out a zoom lens and began to shoot the horizon. "Stop," I told her. "What do you see?" She silently showed the screen. There, in the frame, was a group of people, standing between the trees. 5 of them, with their backs to us. One of them was wearing a yellow belt. "Is that him?" I whispered. Yuri took the camera from her and turned it off. "If they realize you're watching, they won't let you go. We spent the night right on the tower. It was safer up there, or so it seemed." Until the scraping noise started below. Someone, or something, was scraping the metal. One of the Ukrainians tried to stick his head out and take a look, and immediately recoiled. "They're faceless," he said. We sat there until dawn. With the first rays of light, everything disappeared. No sounds, no traces. But then I noticed that Yuri had left a camera on the set. An old film one. I said, "Let them think we filmed it. Then they'll give us time to leave." The next morning we had only 4 people left. We walked slowly, barely speaking. It felt like every word could attract someone's attention. An empty, sticky feeling, as if someone was walking next to us but behind our back. We didn't turn around. No one suggested stopping or taking a break. Even Yuri became quieter, more careful, walked with a tense face, as if he was reading something from every path. Fog was creeping through the forest, low, warm, unnaturally thick. I followed the Muscovite woman. I now knew her name was Lara. She was no longer filming. The camera was in her backpack. She was holding a piece of coal that she had picked up from a burnt-out campfire, and she was constantly drawing something on the inside of her palm. When I asked, she just looked at me, with a blank look, as if she didn't understand what I was talking about. A couple of hours later, the fog began to clear, and we came out to a dilapidated building. An old school, apparently. Wooden. The paint was peeling off the walls, and children's drawings in the hallway were faded and blurred. Everything seemed to have been left not decades ago, but yesterday, as if the lesson had been interrupted and the children had never returned. Yuri stopped at the entrance. "You can rest here. This place, people avoid it." "Why?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. "Too many eyes." We went in. It smelled of wet wood and dust. In one of the classrooms, we put our backpacks down. Some sat by the wall. Some just lay down on the floor. I couldn't fall asleep. I just looked at the ceiling and listened. There, behind the door, it seemed like someone was wandering. Slowly, not heavily, just quietly, step by step. But if you listened for too long, you could believe that these weren't steps at all. That this was a ticking, as if someone was slowly, very slowly, measuring out time. One of the Ukrainians took out an old newspaper he had found on the windowsill. He began to read. "Listen, it says here, on the night of the 9th to the 10th, all the children in the younger group disappeared. No traces were found." He fell silent and turned the page. "And this isn't the date?" I looked. Yes, the 9th of May, 1986. 10 days after the explosion, I muttered. Yuri went to the window. They didn't know then that it had all begun. Then I asked him directly, "What are you hiding?" He sat down on the desk. His shoulders slumped. "I was born not far from here. My father was a liquidator. I was a teenager when the rumors started about the silent zone. It was a patch of forest where the equipment shut down, the compasses went crazy, and no one could hear the birds. It was thought to be just a radiation hotbed, but people were disappearing. Whole patrols." He fell silent. One of them left a recording. Just one. And it had just 3 words. "They hear everything." The words hung in the air. Lara stood up, walked to the board, and suddenly began writing with chalk, without words. I approached. She was writing phrases. "Don't make noise here. Don't say names. Don't look out the windows at night." "Who told you that?" I asked. She smiled. "I don't remember. Maybe they wrote it. I just saw it." We didn't stay there longer than an hour. On the road again through the damp forest, where the drops fell from the leaves unnaturally evenly, as if someone was counting each one. The terrain became strange. The same grove came across 3 times. The same snag, the same inscription on a birch. "Be quiet." Yuri stopped more and more often, looked at the compass, and frowned. "We can't get out," he said one day. "Either they're playing or we're no longer where we were. We spent the night under the trees, without fire, without talking." Only Lara was again drawing something on the ground with her finger. In the morning, she said that she had a dream. I was at home, in my room, but outside the window, a forest, and it rose up, as if the earth was a funnel and the sky, the bottom. At dawn, one of the Ukrainians simply left. Silently. We didn't stop him. We just watched him slowly dissolve into the fog. "They called him," Lara said. "Who?" She turned to me. "Do you still think it's just radiation?" On the 5th day, our perception of time finally broke down. We walked through the forest, but it seemed that we were not getting closer to any goal. The terrain, like in a looped film, repeated itself. Again, a fallen tree passed by, a rusty sign with the inscription, Camp Rainbow. Again, the same ravine with black water at the bottom. But the navigator, a useless piece of plastic, showed different coordinates each time. Yuri didn't speak anymore. He walked ahead, tired and empty. One of the Ukrainians stayed behind. He didn't want to move on. He just sat down by a tree and closed his eyes. We didn't insist. We just nodded to him. He nodded back. Everyone understood he wouldn't go back, and not because he couldn't, but because the forest had already absorbed him. We walked a little further when we noticed a wooden cross on the side of the road. No inscriptions. Fresh wood, damp with dew. Under the cross was a photograph. 3 people in Soviet military uniforms, their faces blurred by rain and time. I took the photo. On the back was scratched, "Don't wake them." Lara looked at the cross, then at me. "We're going the wrong way." "Where should we go?" I asked. She pointed to the side, into the depths of the thicket. "They're waiting." I don't know why we followed her. Maybe because there was no turning back. Or maybe we subconsciously felt that she knew where she was leading. It was like someone was talking to her, but only to her. 40 minutes later, we came to a strange place. It is not marked on any map, but stalkers have told us about it, half jokingly, half whispering over cheap moonshine. Right in the middle of the forest is an open area, scorched like a circle from a lightning strike. At its edges are 7 identical figures carved from wood. All are human-sized. All are faceless. "The circle of silence," Yuri whispered. "What is it?" He swallowed. "It is believed that a search party disappeared here in '86. 5 soldiers, a doctor, and an engineer. No one returned. The locals later found these figures. At first there were 6 of them. Since then, every time someone disappeared, a new one was added. I walked past the wooden sculptures. They were carved with frightening precision. I noticed a belt on one, just like the missing Ukrainian. Another had a piece of glasses. A third had a child's button. And suddenly I realized these are not sculptures. These are anchors, monuments, or markers. Yuri stood between them. Everyone who enters this circle leaves a part of themselves here, something unnoticeable. Memory, voice, face, and in return they get a chance to get out. Only not everyone can pay. Lara looked into the center of the circle. "They said that the choice is mine, that I should decide who stays." I stepped towards her. "Who are they?" She didn't answer. She just looked, and I saw a reflection in her eyes. The figures were moving, barely noticeable, but they were moving. "We need to leave," I said, but Lara stood rooted to the spot. "I saw you die, all of you, and only one of you made it. That means someone needs to be given up." "This is nonsense, Lara." "No, this is a contract. This is a ritual. You don't understand how everything works here. This isn't just a zone. This is a place that lives. It has its own mind. It's not evil. It's ancient and hungry." I grabbed her hand. "We're leaving." "That's it." But it was too late. One of the wooden silhouettes fell to the ground. Instantly, silently. In its place was a man. Dead. The one who had stayed by the tree. His eyes were open, and he was looking at the sky. "It's already started," Yuri whispered. "What started?" He looked at me. "The countdown." After the circle of silence, something began that is hard to describe in words. It was as if the forest ceased to be a forest. It had lost its logical structure. There was no geometry in it anymore, only the feeling that you were inside something alive. The tree branches bent lower, as if whispering to each other. The moss underfoot became viscous, even the air, stretchy, like thick soup. It smelled of dampness, metal, and something else, weak, chemical like weathered formalin. We walked almost in silence. Lara in front, eyes downcast. Behind her were me and the remaining Ukrainian, I think his name was Pasha, but at that moment names no longer mattered. Yuri brought up the rear, walking heavily, as if every movement was painful for him. He had given up a lot, both physically and in his face. We had all given up. The watch on my hand had been showing the same minute for several hours in a row. I checked the battery. Everything was fine. The hands just weren't moving. The same with the dosimeter. Now 0, now off scale, now back to silence. The navigator was dead. At some point, I realized there was nothing else to confirm that we were moving at all. Only steps, only tired legs. The clearing we came to appeared as if suddenly, without a transition, as if someone had cut it out of another world and inserted it into this one. Absolutely flat, framed by trees along the perimeter, with a perfectly round elevation in the center like a burial mound. On top of the mound there was only one object, a child's chair. Red, faded, tilted, not a trace, not a single piece of trash around. Even the wind had suddenly disappeared. "What is it?" I asked. Yuri didn't answer. He just froze, as if he felt an old pain. Pasha came closer, walked around the hill. No traces, too clean, unnatural. I stood next to him. "Do you think this is a trap?" "I don't know," he answered, "but it's wrong. Everything around us seems to be waiting for us to do something." Lyra approached the chair, quietly, slowly. She ran her hand over the seat, then sat down on the ground next to it. And only then did she speak, for the first time in hours. "I saw this place in a dream. That night, when we spent the night on the tower, I was sitting on this chair, and around me, children were walking, all without faces, just silhouettes, gray, silent. One of them came up to me and held out an object. I couldn't see what it was. It was as if my gaze was sliding, not focusing. He said, 'Give it back.' I asked, 'What?' He repeated, 'Give back what you were given. It's not yours.' And then I understood. The zone doesn't just live. It remembers. It has its own memory. It demands balance." I exchanged glances with Pasha. Yuri was silent. We all understood. Everything she said sounded like nonsense, and at the same time like the truth, which you cannot prove but cannot help but admit. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "We went too deep," Lyra said. "Not physically, mentally. We left a trail behind us, like an imprint. The zone now thinks that we are a part of it, that we took something, and wants to give it back." Yuri winced. "You don't understand," he said sharply. "You don't know what this place can do. I was here in 87. We were sent to demean the border of the 30-kilometer zone. There were 6 of us. I was left alone. The rest, they just disappeared. One was looking in the mirror. The second climbed into the destroyed basement. The third heard music, went to the source, and we never saw him again. The fourth started talking to someone, although there was no one there, and the fifth just sat down and said, 'I understand,' and died. And then they told me to keep quiet, and I kept quiet. For decades, until I dreamed of this place, this circle, this chair. Everything is like then. Everything comes back. It always comes back. Silence. Only the wind which had appeared again, swirling the dry leaves at Lyra's feet. She stood up, picked up the camera and pointed it at the hill. The screen remained black. No image, no signal. "She doesn't want anyone to see it," Lyra said. "But she wants us to understand, to remember." Remembered what? Pasha clenched his fists. Your guilt. What each of us took away from here. Something that does not belong to us. I didn't take anything, he shouted. This is my first time here. I'm just a fucking tourist. Lyra slowly turned to him. Remember, one moment in life, when you knew you were doing wrong, when you saw something and turned away, when you could help and didn't. Here it is, that part. What you took away, and now it is here, in this land, in these branches, and it is waiting for you to return it. Pasha couldn't take it anymore. He turned around and ran into the forest. We didn't try to stop him. We just watched him disappear between the trees. The sound of his footsteps died down as if he had never been there. A moment later, silence, as if nothing had happened. Yuri sat down on the ground. He took an old map out of his pocket. He unfolded it and ran his finger along the fold. Here we are. Roughly. So what? I asked. He looked me in the eyes. 2 kilometers away, there's an old concrete bunker. They used to keep meteorological equipment and archival films there. I think that's where it all started. What do you want to do? Finish. If the zone has a will, it will manifest itself there. I looked at Lyra. She nodded silently. And we went on. After the circle, we walked in silence. The forest had changed. Not in form, not in color, but in feel. The air was thick, as if saturated with something invisible. Occasionally a smell would appear, sour, with metallic notes, as if old radiators had burned out and someone had broken an ampule of vinegar. We no longer looked around. I felt that if I lingered my gaze a little longer on some abandoned building, a lonely tree, or even my own footprints, I would feel as if someone was studying me in return. Lyra walked first. Her hands were in her pockets, her face was empty, like a scorched field. She hardly spoke to us after the circle. Only occasionally did she record short notes into a dictaphone. I later accidentally heard one of the fragments. We took the wrong thing, or brought too much. There is a reaction here, not hostile but definitely purposeful, as if the zone is analyzing how we will behave. After a couple of hours of walking, they came to a clearing that, according to Yuri's map, should not have been there for a long time. It crossed the red forest, the same one where, after the explosion in 1986, all the vegetation died out and acquired a strange burnt orange hue. Now everything looked as if alive, but not alive. The trees were standing, but not moving. Even the wind could not make them sway. All the vegetation was frozen, not in slow motion, but in some kind of hard stop in time. Yuri checked the paper. There used to be a transmitting tower here, a radio relay station that served the southern perimeter of the zone. After it was liquidated, it was walled up. But there were rumors that equipment remained inside, and also archives. What archives? I asked. Voices, he answered simply. Recordings of liquidators' conversations, dosimetrists' diaries, testimony. And why do we need to go there? If there is a place where there can be an explanation for what is happening, this is it. We walked in a straight line. To the left and to the right, there were only dried-up trees. At some point, we heard a crackling sound. The sound was getting closer, as if someone was dragging an antenna along the ground. But there was nothing in sight, no tracks, no movement, only the sound. A couple of minutes later, it disappeared. Yuri said that this happens, especially here, in the red forest. Radio waves are reflected, jumping around, like in a jar of bees. Sometimes you hear a person who died 30 years ago passing by. Soon they saw a concrete slab, partially overgrown with moss. On it stood a boarded-up door with the remains of an inscription. Info Center, Facility Number 83. Nearby, a rusty ladder jutted down into the darkness. The air coming from there was cold, damp, with a taste of dust and some kind of machine oil. "Shall we go down?" I asked. Yuri nodded. "Quickly. There are 2 levels. I was here, a long time ago, on duty, but they didn't let us past the first level. Only officers. We went inside. At first it was just a basement. Cables, broken lamps, shelves with dusty folders. Then more serious rooms. Equipment, old radios, tape recorders. Everything was covered in dust. But the cables were fresh. Some looked like someone had recently connected them. On the wall there was a map of the zone with handmade notes. Red marker. The last note was from 2003. "Who came here?" I asked. "I don't know," Yuri answered. "Maybe from the special services. They said that in the early 2000s, psychophysics groups came here. They studied the reaction of people in the deep zone. In the room with the films, there was a tape recorder. We turned it on. The tape started playing. First, noise. Then, a voice. Male, tired, hoarse. 48th minute. Subject passed by observation window. No shadow. Steps, not synchronized. Doors are holding. Light, flickering. Smell, resembles ammonia. Condition, anxiety, disorientation. Continuing observation. We looked at each other. Lara took out a dictaphone and recorded the entire tape. "Is this surveillance of what?" "Objects that no one has identified. Dozens of them were recorded in the zone," Yuri said quietly. "Some saw people in masks. Some saw figures dissolving in the air. Some saw just sound. These recordings are not for scientific work. These are instructions on how not to go crazy." Suddenly a squeak. Strong, sharp. One of the dosimeters came to life, blinked, and died down again. We went outside. The sky darkened. There should have been another 2 hours before sunset, but the clouds were gathering quickly, and somewhere among the trees, a smell. Fresh, warm, as if someone had just warmed up some meat on a fire. There shouldn't be anything like that in the zone. We realized that someone had been here, or was. The bushes rustled to the left. I froze. Footsteps. Quiet, but distinct, like a person. Then, breathing. Someone was wheezing, very close, but behind the trees. We didn't check. We just went back. The road back was longer, or so it seemed to us. Yuri lost his way twice. The third time he stopped and looked at the forest. "He won't let us go." Who is he? Not a man, not a creature, space itself. It records, it studies, and it draws a conclusion. That night we didn't take turns sleeping. We just sat, in complete silence, by the old tower. No one wanted to fall asleep. Not because we were afraid, because we might wake up somewhere else. In the morning, Yuri looked bad. His lips were dry, there were shadows under his eyes. His skin had turned gray. He was silent, sipping water as if he didn't feel the taste. He only nodded when Lara asked if he was ready to go. I myself felt a strange lethargy, not physical, more mental, as if my mind had become viscous, my thoughts weren't holding, as if the forest inside and the forest outside had merged and I was part of the space. We decided to go straight to the post. No detours, no stops. We laid out the route using the old map, checking from memory because no equipment worked anymore. The navigators were silent. The compass was spinning like crazy. Only steps. Only the path. Lara stayed in the center of the group, no longer in front, but as if hiding among us. She took out her camera less and less often. At some point she said, "I'm not sure we're recording anything anymore. Memory is distorted. The devices don't store anything. They only consume. Yuri, hearing this, grinned. A camera is not a witness, it's a window. And someone on the other side is watching too. We walked through the ruined buildings, past an abandoned farm where cows had died in the first days after the explosion. Their bones were still there, white as plaster, charred in places. But the main thing was that in these places there were sounds. They were untraceable. Sometimes they were voices, like a radio in the background. Sometimes children's laughter. I heard someone calling my name twice. Once in my mother's voice. The second time in the voice of a commander who had died many years ago. Yuri suddenly stopped. "Do you see the tower?" We squinted. A familiar silhouette loomed through the fog in the distance on the horizon, the Duga radar station, the same one that had once served as part of the early warning system, the legendary Russian woodpecker. It emitted low-frequency pulses that jammed radio signals all over the world. Now it was just a black iron cage standing at the edge of the world. "We're almost home," Lyra whispered. 2 hours later, we reached the road. A real one. The asphalt was broken, but we could still read it. The remains of markings, posts, even a slanted sign that said, Pripyat, 5 kilometers. There was a car parked nearby, a military one. Not new, but it was running. We froze. A man got out of the car. He was wearing camouflage with a badge and unarmed. He moved slowly, confidently, as if he knew who we were. He came up to us and said, "Are you Sergeyev, Lera Bondarenko, and Lieutenant Colonel Yuri Vitalievich?" We nodded. "Glad to see you. We've been looking for you. For a long time." "How long were we in the zone?" I asked. He looked at the papers. "According to our data, 8 days. But according to GPS, you did not leave the triangle with an area of about 1 kilometer. "That's impossible," I said. "We've gone at least 15. "I'm not arguing," he said calmly. "I'm just saying what the instruments show." They took us to Kapachi. There was a temporary camp there. Tests. Interviews. Lara was taken separately. The camera was taken for examination. A few hours later, a man in civilian clothes arrived, without a uniform. He introduced himself simply. "Institute of Dynamic Geopsychics." "Who is this anyway?" I asked. "We work at the intersection of geography, neurophysiology, and extreme states of consciousness. We are interested in points where space influences perception. Chernobyl is one of them." He took out a tablet and showed a map. "You are here. This is the zone of the so-called secondary memory, a place where consciousness records not only external events, but also its own projections. Have you ever experienced hallucinations?" We heard sounds, saw things that couldn't be explained. "That's normal," he nodded. So-called information bubbles were registered there, residual states of events that happened decades ago, sometimes very recent ones. They are activated when an observer with an unstable psyche is present, especially in a group. That's it? Just psychology? Not just. But we can't explain it any other way yet. And while you're here, I recommend not telling too much. People don't take well to stories in which reality becomes liquid. A day later, they let us go. They didn't return Lara's camera. They said that nothing was recorded on it. But we knew it was a lie. She didn't even argue. She just looked out the window and kept quiet. A week later, I tried to find Pasha, the Ukrainian who had escaped. It turned out that his family had reported him missing. No signals, no coordinates, no body. He had disappeared, as if he had never existed. Even the photos were only on my phone, and even then they had disappeared after an update. Yuri disappeared on the 3rd day after his return. According to neighbors, he went to the store and did not return. There is nothing on the cameras. It was as if he had never been there. Lara stayed. She moved, changed her name, refused journalism, writes articles about visual perception in children with post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm the one left. Sometimes I wake up at midnight and hear someone calling my name, in a whisper, like in that forest. I turn off the light and sit in the dark, because I know the zone doesn't forget. She's waiting, and maybe I'm still there. A year after my return, I received a letter, paper with clear handwriting and no return address. Inside was a short note and a film in a plastic envelope. You took more than just your voice. You took the evidence. The tape is still there, but only you know what's on it. Give it back before they come for what's theirs. UV. I sat with this film in my hands for almost an hour. I tried to remember. Did we have a camera with analog recording? Everything that Lara filmed was digital, and Yuri, he didn't film anything. Or did I misunderstand something? The next day I took the film to the lab where, as an old friend, they agreed to develop it. They said it would be ready by evening. When I came for the results, the lab assistant was pale. She showed me the pictures. Not a single one of us was there. Not Lara. Not Pasha. Not Yuri. The footage showed the remains of a concrete station, a corridor with a mosaic on the wall, a door with handprints, and figures, vague, blurred, like silhouettes. In one frame, 1, in another, 3, in the last, 7, all standing in a circle of silence. In the center of the circle, a man in an old uniform, his face a black spot. I burned the film that night, not out of fear, out of understanding. Not everything needs proof. After that, I tried to live as before. I wrote articles. I worked with archives. But I couldn't get rid of one feeling. As if someone was watching. Not me specifically. The fact of my presence. Every year at the beginning of May, I receive a notification. You are invited to a closed meeting of the participants of the Chernobyl South Monitoring Program. No coordinates, no schedule, just the date. And every time on this day, the phone goes off. The navigator shows that I am in the 30-kilometer zone, although I am sitting at home. That very smell appears in the air. Warm metal, hot dust. I don't go there anymore. But sometimes I think, maybe it's not over yet. Maybe the return was an illusion. Maybe we never left. And everything we see now is a second reality, glued together from memory and guilt. The zone does not scream. It whispers. And whoever knows how to listen is already infected, not by radiation, not by fear. Understanding.